Welcome to the Young Adult Community Member Survey webinar. My name is Leslie Ware and I'm from OSET. I will be conducting the webinar today. The webinar will cover the Young Adult Community Member Survey instrument, its use in data collection, pairing it with Memorandum of Understanding, and explaining the data collection process and the importance of confidentiality. The Young Adult Community Member Survey was an instrument created for data collection among 18 to 25-year-olds. It meets the requirements for the Strategic Prevention Framework Partnership for Success, or SPF-PFS. It includes the COMS, the 30-day use for alcohol and prescription drug items, as well as the 30-day binge item for alcohol. So those are the consumption items for the COMS, as well as the required and recommended intervening variables, the risk of harm, disapproval, and obtaining the source for substances for both alcohol and prescription drugs. The items in the survey instrument were selected to match those of the OES. The majority of coalitions in the PFS are using the OES for data collection for the under 18 population. So the item wording and response options for these items were selected to match the OES for the Young Adult Community Member Survey. This will allow those communities using the OES to have parallel items for the secondary population, that 18 to 25. You can customize this survey by adding questions. However, you must obtain approval from OSET. You can ask your local evaluator to assist you in that process. The Young Adult Community Member Survey is a very short questionnaire. So it includes those COMS, it includes the required and recommended intervening variables, as well as a place for county, gender, and age. This is important because you want to make sure that the respondents are from your county, that they are within the required age range, and then the gender question allows you to split your data. If necessary, it's recommended to use an MOU. So a memorandum of understanding, that's a formal agreement between two or more parties. Collecting that 18 to 25-year-old data tends to be difficult. And oftentimes coalitions find that they need to pair or partner with another organization to be successful in collecting a wide range of data. The MOU allows you to specify the data collection timelines, the roles and responsibilities that each organization is going to play for the data collection process. And it also requires thinking through and solidifying the data collection process for both organizations. Obtaining an MOU is recommended for each partnering organization. Oftentimes, coalitions will partner with one organization for one collection site and a different organization for a different collection site. And you would want unique MOUs completed for each of those partnering organizations. The MOU templates do need to be completed. So the MOU templates are available on the website, and the MOUs are detailed skeletons. So they have the phrases in there and the point-by-point data collection process. However, it's missing details. So you need to go through and specify which organization is responsible for which piece of the data collection process. There are several benefits to using an MOU. Both parties think through the data collection process. It guarantees that the coalition will gain access to the data that's collected and any reports that come out of the data. And it also prevents misunderstandings and complications. So the partnering organization, for instance, understands its responsibilities up front and is not surprised when you ask for volunteers or you ask that their staff do something with your staff. Data in the community, data collection in the community can be more challenging with that 18 to 25 population. We have found through experience that there are a couple of ways to collect that data successfully. The first is to collect data at community events, such as fairs, and more static locations like the Job and Family Service waiting room or the waiting room at WIC or Head Start enrollment, for instance. Those are all places where this age group is likely to be found. To get a good sample, it usually requires collecting at multiple sites. And it often, again, requires partnering with several organizations in the community to be successful in collecting enough data. And we've also found that it's best accomplished in the summer. It's easier to get access to this population in the summer, in part because there are more events in the community going on. What I would recommend is to look at your community calendar to see what events are scheduled over the summer. If you don't already have a member on your coalition from that 18 to 25 demographic, you should recruit one and ask them to go through those events with you and identify which ones are the most promising, the ones most likely to have other 18 to 25-year-olds. Enrollment locations like WIC, Head Start, Workforce, and even a lot of communities have one-stop or community action organizations with a single waiting room for multiple organizations. And those are all great places to collect data. When you think about collecting the data, think through the locations logistically. So fairs often have a single day that a lot of people come. There's some sort of special going on, special entry fee or something along those lines where the lines to get in are very long. This would be a good day to set up a stand at the lines and ask people to complete it while they're standing in line, and again, a place to sort of kill time. However, on your typical day getting into the fair, the lines are very short and it would not be advantageous to have a booth set up at the entry. Instead, it makes more sense for exits from rides. If you were collecting a community college, exiting the classroom was when you would want to try to get these people, not when they're going into the classrooms. At events and even sometimes at static locations, bathrooms can be a really good place to collect data. For instance, at the fair, there will tend to be a large group of people standing around bathrooms waiting for friends and family members to finish. And this is a good time where they're just waiting and killing time, that they're more likely and more willing to complete your data collection instrument. It is often necessary to require or to offer an incentive for completing the survey with this population. There are two typical ways of going about using incentives. The first is to provide a single big prize and raffle it off. So when someone completes the survey, they would also complete a separate form where they can put their name and contact information. Their name and contact information must be kept completely separate from the data collection survey so that their confidentiality of the responses is not violated. Another way of using incentives is to have a small incentive, like a bottle of water at an outdoor event in the summer tends to attract people and get them willing to complete their survey. As I mentioned, confidentiality. Confidentiality means that an individual's responses are private and will not in any way be linked to them. In a small community where reputations are very important and people know one another, confidentiality is very important. Pencil and paper survey collection is the easiest to violate confidentiality with. So it's most important to think through the data collection process and ensure confidentiality. For instance, if you were to have clipboards with a survey on there for people to complete, you would only put a single survey on the clipboard for them to complete, because if there were other surveys underneath it, their responses when they write them are going to be pressed into the survey beneath it. So in that way, both the people collecting the data as well as the next respondent would be able to see that person's responses, and that is a violation of confidentiality. Similarly, when somebody completes the survey, they should fold it in half and put it in an envelope or a box themselves so that no one else sees their responses. Anyone who has contact with the data must understand confidentiality and follow the procedures necessary to ensure it for all respondents. If at all possible, you should go to a data collection site ahead of time and look at it and identify the best methods for collecting data at that location. So if you're going to collect at a waiting room at a federally qualified health center, you should go to that waiting room and look around, see the layout of the room, see where the staff are, and get a good idea of how that could work. In an event, it is often impossible to go through the data collection location ahead of time because you don't know how things are going to be set up. But you can mentally play through possible locations. We already talked about a couple of them. So bathrooms, entrance lines, that kind of thing. Create step-by-step instructions for the data collection. You need to think through step by step how the data is going to be collected. You need to offer trainings to any person who may be collecting the data, both within your coalition and within your partnering organization. Provide a bullet pointed list of procedures that you're going to pair with those blank surveys. So you would have a stack of surveys. You would maybe have the envelope or the box that you're going to put the completed surveys in, and you right on top could have a tape on it, the bullet pointed list of procedures that would tell the person, for instance, the administration person in the waiting room at the WIC office could look down and say, okay, I should put a single survey on a clipboard with a pencil. I should read this very short script. You should provide a script for everybody who is doing data collection to read or memorize. It should be very short and to the point. Hi, are you within 18 to 25? If they say yes, you say, great, I have a short survey about alcohol and drug use. It's completely confidential and it's just going to be used for increasing prevention in our counties. Would you be willing to complete it? If you do, you could have a chance to win membership to this gym, or in exchange for completing it, we are giving away bottles of water, something along those lines. And then you also need to determine how you're going to store the data. So like I said, an envelope or a box is usually the best way. When your coalition is going to either pick up the data at the end of each day, if you're doing it in a waiting room, at the end of the week, or are you going to ask a volunteer from that partnering organization that's collecting the data that day to drop it off at a specific location? So make sure that you walk all the way through step by step and figure out how you're collecting the data, what's going to be said, what incentives you have, and how the data is all going to be collected. You also should emphasize the need for confidentiality in all materials and trainings that you provide and offer. Once you have the data, what do you do with it? So your coalition is responsible for collecting, entering, analyzing, and summarizing your data. We already talked about how you can partner with another organization to collect the data. Once it's collected, either your organization could directly enter the data, analyze it, and summarize it in a report, or you could contract those steps out to another organization. If you do contract out, make sure you actually have a contract in place. You can work with your local evaluator if you need assistance in formalizing that relationship. And your coalition, again, is responsible for confidentiality throughout the entire process. So you need to make sure that any organization that you're contracting with for analyzing and summarizing your data, or entering and analyzing and summarizing your data, um, understands confident that this is confidential responses and that confidentiality procedures need to be followed. So I hope that this webinar has been instructive and helpful. I hope that you successfully use the Young Adult Community Member Survey, that you are successful in getting signed MOUs in place to strategically ensure that the data collection goes well. And I would recommend reaching out to your local evaluator for assistance in this process. Thank you very much.